Sorry, that first part got cut off a little bit, so we'll just do this in two parts. If I'd put on the decals, I would be getting that better attachment of the decals which I want, and I can even do a clear coat over that to seal it, and I can put a matte coat over that or a satin coat over that. Probably matte would be good. That would take care of the decals. But I'm looking at this now from the point of view of what coloration is still going to go over that. With the wash, be careful that you're not dulling the decals too much. Now that would depend on the vehicle and what you see on actual photos of the vehicle. So this particular one, we have this white paint on the side and we've got those decals on the front. They must be dirty, but not over the top. So I could have done this onto a more gloss coat, done my washes with the decals already on, and then done my stains with that ink, the brown ink that I was referring to. But that brown ink is somewhat strong, even though I said make yourself a couple of thinned down versions of it from what you buy in the shop. Test it out and you'll see it's quite strong. Put some into a different container with a little bit of water, thin it down a little bit. All of them are a lot stronger than this, for instance. And I don't mean using this straight out of the tub. Of course it's strong straight out of the tub. I'm talking about your wash action. So your wash action being quite thinned down will already brown or darken or blacken your decals a little. If that was already too much, which may have been true on this, I suspect it would have been, that's only the one part of it. But then by the time I get to that brown ink, depending on what lines I'm following to put that brown ink on, whether they went across a decal or not, may have been too much or actually damage the visual effect of it. So my decals went on after all of that, and then finally a little bit of touching up with some of this one. The downside of that is, as I said in the other video, I just put my decals onto that somewhat matte coat. Realistically, I should have actually then sprayed it with the acrylic clear coat, floor wax, put the decals on, seal it with another coat, spray it a matte coat, so at least your decals on, and then weathered slightly. That just comes from wanting to finish it too quickly and wanting to skip a few steps. So right now, as I say, I could get those decals off very easily. If I touched them a bit too much, they would come off, or if I specifically wanted to remove a decal, I could actually get it off with a blade and it'll sort of just pop off. But it's okay. We won't have decals falling off because we're not going to be touching it that much. Do you see those two decals there? So that one and that one, those two there, they're not supposed to be one on top of each other. They're supposed to be in line. This is just an example of the Airfix box art and decal sizes not matching the space available on the side of your vehicle, which I have mentioned in other videos, where what you're trying to achieve and what you're supposed to achieve isn't possible. I think it was with one of my motorbikes, because the decals are not actually consistent with the size of the artwork or the actual vehicle's markings. But it's okay. So that's a deviation from reality, in case you had spotted that and were wondering. Looks a little bit. So I just chose a route by positioning the one a bit up and rear and the other one a bit forward and down. Someone mentioned it needs the driver. Yes, I think it does, and I will be doing the driver. I'll still do a little bit of touching up. Now, of course, with armored vehicles, even soft skin, there's so many variations of how you can approach it. If you were doing a completely different method, that's fine. And I mean, you may be doing different fixative methods, spraying with a fixative to fix a dusting layer or whatever the case. You know, this what I've suggested with a wash, and then those methods of dry brushing the various paints to get that. Of course, there's so many variations of that with vehicles. A point to note is that, remember I said that I used the Humbrol's dry brushing over the edges and even sometimes on the flat surfaces, having already had a wash of this. So we've got sort of a thin particle layer of this stuff, which is acrylic and somewhat loose, not a very fixed layer. And then I'm going over with a Humbrol. Now, yes, you can get away with that on a small vehicle compared to an aircraft. I wouldn't do that on an aircraft because, I mean, what's happening is you probably brush, as that Humbrol goes over a particular area, it's just destroying and wiping the very, very localized area of that. And that's fine because that's exactly the effect we're looking for. And it's not like we're causing a Humbrol layer to fail because it was placed over a bad acrylic layer. It doesn't matter at all on when we're just dealing with those edges and very small surface areas. So that can work just fine. It does somewhat depend on the topic that you're working on, exactly what you want to, what you can get away with and what you can't. I enjoyed this. It's not the easiest of builds. It's more difficult than that half track, that white half track that I did. But if you know in advance, you know, to test fit all of these square pieces in that engine compartment, I did have to do a fair bit of filing and adjustment, and in hindsight I would have done even a bit more because there was a little bit of stress at one stage to get things right. But all in all, I think I've got a very nice result. You know, not competition quality. It'll be okay. Be good enough for the table. Last thing is, and this is another area where I sort of cut corners a little bit, the Carrier film extension beyond the markings, especially on those two, not so much on these side ones because there was enough area there, but those ones, the Carrier film sort of extends beyond the mudguard itself. It's very touch and go. Now normally, as you know, you would trim the decal and get rid of that little extra, sometimes 0.5 millimeter worth of Carrier film if the space available isn't there for it. So I've just about managed it on this, but it's something I didn't do. I am noting, I'm just looking for silvering, and I think because these decals are so small, the particular coloration, there is silvering, but you can hardly tell. I did use decal sol and set, by the way. Actually, I used a good amount in relation to the size of the decal, which has saved me problems. Yeah, maybe there isn't silvering. Maybe I'm just imagining it. All in all, very good. But, you know, obviously there's a number of things that I could have done different just to improve that level. So I'm not sure if the seats on the Universal Carrier might have had covers on them. The metal part of the seat might have had softened covers on them, sort of a canvas type of seating in some situations, or if it was just very rugged and just the green metal. The steering wheel grip area, I'll probably make that a little bit black. I'll give a little bit of weathering around the tow hook. and I can add a little bit of touching on the tracks, not so much on the bottom of the tracks, but on the inside of the upper surface, so what you see as you're viewing it. Okay, anyway, that's just some of the points which one might have done differently on this. The only way you would get smaller than this is if you did a little motorbike, I think. A really tiny little vehicle. Okay, hope that was good. Cheers.